watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Yumna Naufal, and these are today's top stories. Prime Minister Salam calls for unity and warns the country is in the midst of a political crisis. Speaker Nabibi stresses that it is necessary for the cabinet to convene as scheduled, warning that the country cannot bear postponement. And Turkish Special Forces units supported by warplanes from the US-led coalition launched an operation into Syria to wipe out Daesh. Good afternoon to all our viewers tuning in. Prime Minister Salam is calling on Lebanon's various political factions yet again to work together, warning that the country is in the midst of a political crisis. Salam was quoted as saying, "We will continue to be guardians of the structure and we will not be weakened, but one hand cannot clap by itself." He went on to question how the government expects to produce anything when there is no one to hold it accountable. Salam, however, praised the country for its internal cohesion. The Lebanese Prime Minister has yet to announce whether a cabinet meeting will still be held and if measures would be taken to mitigate a harsh Free Patriotic Movement reaction. Also present at the ceremony was Education Minister Ilyas Bousab. Bousab addressed Salam, saying that his party, like everyone else's, is a partner in Lebanon, but that this partnership does not mean ignoring the opinions of others. Speaker Nabibi is stressing that it is necessary for the cabinet to convene as scheduled, warning that the country cannot bear any more postponement. Should the situation continue in this manner and in this calmness, you can ask Finance Minister Ali Hassan Khalil about how difficult it will be to pay the salaries of civil servants. Bidi told visitors visiting him at Ain al-Tine. His remarks come in response to Free Patriotic Movement Chief Gibran Basil's declaration on Tuesday that the FPM's two ministers will boycott Thursday's session as a warning message related to the thorny issue of military appointments. Basil also warned that the country could face a system crisis after the session. Interior Minister Nuhad Mashnu is announcing that all the suspects tied to the twin 2013 Tripoli mosque bombings have been identified. The case has been referred to judicial authorities and the government has assigned a judicial investigator. The file is in his hands, Mashnu said at a memorial ceremony in Tripoli to mark 3 years since the attack. The minister added that some of those involved had fled the country, but others have been arrested. He promised his Mufti Sheikh Malik Al-Shaar that the case will be in his hands in 2 days and it will include the names of organizers, suspects at large, those arrested, as well as all perpetrators. Turkish Special Forces units supported by warplanes from the US-led coalition have launched an operation into northern Syria to wipe out Daesh along the Turkish-Syrian border. The Turkish army began firing artillery rounds into the Syrian border town of Jarablus. Turkey did vow on Monday to completely cleanse Islamic State militants from its border region after a suicide bomber suspected of links to the group killed 54 people, including 22 children, at a Kurdish wedding in southeastern city of Gaziantep. So U.S. Vice President Joe Biden arrived to Turkey for critical talks with its leadership as Ankara is launching the military operation against ISIS. Biden is to seek to repair relations with its NATO ally after the putsch, which Ankara is blaming on the Pennsylvania-based preacher Fethullah Gulen. Washington confirms that Turkey has made a formal request for the extradition of the cleric who has lived in self-imposed exile in the U.S. Relations between Ankara and Washington have been strained because the U.S. says it needs evidence rather than allegations of Gulen's involvement. Turkish officials warn that if he is not extradited, relations will suffer further and anti-American sentiment will deepen in the country. Coming up next, Nicolas Sarkozy launches his 2017 presidential bid with a new book called Tout pour la France, Everything for France. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Top U.S. diplomat John Kerry is expected to arrive in Saudi Arabia to push for peace in Yemen after UN broker talks collapsed, despite world concern over mounting civilian casualties. He just arrived. Over 2 days, Kerry is to meet Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubair and other Gulf ministers as well. He'll also meet UN Yemen envoy Ismail Oud Sheikh Ahmed and Britain's Undersecretary for State for the Middle East, Tobias Elwood. The kingdom led an Arab coalition that began air raids in March of last year and later sent in ground forces to support Yemen's internationally recognized government after Houthi rebels and their allies overran much of the country. An earthquake devastated a string of mountainous towns over a swath of central Italy earlier this morning, trapping residents under hills of rubble, with at least 38 people believed killed and many more missing. The quake struck in the early hours of the morning when most people were asleep, razing homes and buckling roads in a cluster of towns and villages some 140 kilometers east of Rome. The emergency services released an aerial photograph showing whole areas of the town of Amatrice flattened, while debris filled the streets of nearby Accumoli. The quake hit during the summer when the populations of the communities in the area, normally low during the rest of the year, are swelled by vacationers. Officials said 6 people were known to have died in Accumoli and further 6 were reported dead in Amatrice. Nicolas Sarkozy is launching his 2017 presidential campaign with the publication of a new book entitled Everything for France. This comes after the former president visited his new Paris headquarters after announcing he would run for president in 2017, hoping to return as France's head of state after being unseated in 2012 by the now deeply unpopular François Hollande. A figure either loved or loathed by conservative voters, Sarkozy says in a forthcoming book he will join more than a dozen contenders vying for the party ticket in primaries, where former Prime Minister Alain Juppé will be his strongest rival. Sarkozy has done little to conceal his desire to return to the Élysée Palace since returning to high-level politics in late 2014, when he took the helm of France's main center-right party, Les Républicains. But a poll published by Ipsos Le Point just after Sarkozy's announcement shows he is lagging far behind Juppé among core Les Républicains supporters. So the angry debate goes on over the ban of burkinis in France. It was further stoked as images of a veiled woman surrounded by police on a beach in Nice went viral. The series of photos published by British media showed a woman dressed in leggings, a tunic and a headscarf lying on a beach surrounded by 4 police officers. At one point, the woman removes her tunic while a policeman appears to write out a fine. The photos, whose source is not clear, caused a furor on Twitter, where many interpreted them as the woman being forced to undress by police. Nice is one of about 50 French towns which has banned the wearing of the burkini, with authorities declaring it to contravene French secular values and threaten public order. Beachgoers have been left to puzzle over whether it refers solely to head-to-toe swimwear, which some non-Muslims wear for protection from the sun, or to being fully clothed and having one's head covered on the seashore. U.S. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump is focusing on mothers whose children were killed by illegal immigrants and welcomed an endorsement from several Border Patrol officers, making no mention of any possible softening of his hardline position on illegal immigration.
There have been hundreds of immigrants and their children charged with terrorism inside the United States since 9/11. And a number of terrible attacks like the Boston bombing, San Bernardino, and Orlando. Yet Hillary Clinton wants to fling open the floodgates to our borders. Let everybody come in, open up our country, let people pour in. We don't know anything about them. It's going to be a nightmare for our country, just like it's turning out to be an absolute nightmare for Europe. Just ask them what's going on. This election, so important, will decide whether or not we have a border. This election will decide whether or not we have a country. Today, I met with the moms of incredible American children killed by illegal immigrants as a result of the policies of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton will never meet with these families. She will never hear their incredible but so sad stories. She will never hear. She doesn't have the heart, believe me. I would like to invite the mothers who lost their children to illegal immigration to join me on the stage right now. These are great people. They're here with the incredible Remembrance Project. Come on up. I also want to invite very, very special people that I've gotten to know over the years, and they've given me their endorsement, first time ever in their history. The Border Patrol, folks, they are so good.
U.S. President Barack Obama says that residents of Louisiana have had their lives upended by historic flooding in parts of the state, while suggesting Congress may be asked to provide more funding once disaster needs become clear. Obama met with state officials in Baton Rouge to discuss the federal government's response to the flooding, which has dumped more than 76 centimeters of rain on parts of Louisiana.
I just had a chance to see some of the damage from the historic floods here in Louisiana. I come here first and foremost to say that the prayers of the entire nation are with everybody who lost loved ones. We are heartbroken by the loss of life. There are also people who are still desperately trying to track down friends and family. We're going to keep on helping them every way that we can. As I think anybody who can see just the streets, much less the inside of the homes here, people's lives have been upended by this flood. As we fine-tune exactly what's needed, when we know, for example, how much permanent housing is going to have to be built, when we have a better sense of how much infrastructure has been damaged, what more we need to do in terms of mitigation strategies, that's when Congress, I think, may be called upon to do some more.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Prime Minister Salam calls for unity and warns country is in the midst of a political crisis. Speaker Nabibi stresses it is necessary for the cabinet to convene, warning that the country cannot bear postponement. And Turkish Special Forces units supported by warplanes from the U.S.-led coalition launch an operation in Syria to wipe out Daesh. Those are your midweek headlines here. Have a good evening from all of us. See you tomorrow.